Hi everybody, my name's Claire Ashley and I'm a photography lecturer here at New College Swindon at Queen's Drive campus. This is a quick virtual tour to show you a little bit about our courses and to show you the facilities that we have here at Queen's Drive, and a chance for me to give you a little workshop on how you can improve your photography. Here at the Queen's Drive campus, we currently have 3 dedicated photography classrooms for the tuition of photography. Each one is filled with computers and computer-aided design software such as Photoshop, Lightroom and Bridge, so you're able to edit your images to perfection. We also have an archival Epson A3 ink printer in each classroom. At the moment, we have 3 graduate teaching staff who teach A-level, Level 2 and Level 3 vocational photography courses and GCSE photography courses. We also have an academic instructor whose job it is to support learners with learning difficulties on the Level 2 courses and help catch up with any coursework that they might have missed. Finally, we have a full-time photography technician. It's Paul's job to help support learners with getting out photography kits from the stores and also to assist you with any problems that you might have in the darkroom or studio during your lessons. At the Queen's Drive campus, we have a large expansive studio. This studio is used by all courses at some point to improve lighting skills and to better understand how to do still life photography and portraiture. On the Level 3 course, either on A-level or vocational Level 3 photography, you can book out this resource for independent use once you've had your introduction into how to use the light equipment safely. Our facilities in the darkroom are equipped to do both wet and dry processing techniques with black and white film. Although you use the studio a little bit on the Level 2 courses to do things such as photograms, it's mainly used by vocational Level 3 students and A-level students. On the Level 3 courses, you explore techniques such as photographing using 35mm film and 120mm film, sepia toning, cyanotypes, saltpaper printing, pinhole photography and chemigrams. These are the 4 courses that we currently study here at New College Swindon in the Queen's Drive campus. For Level 3 courses, you have the option of doing either an A-level alongside 2 of the A-levels or a BTEC Level 3 Extended Diploma in Art, Design, Creative Practice. The BTEC Level 3 Extended Diploma course is a vocational Level 3 course of photography. On this course, you spend 13 hours a week in contact time with your teacher, but you're expected to do about 5 hours at home in your own free time, doing shoots and improving on your coursework. The course is equivalent to 3 A-levels and your work is purely assessed using coursework. Over the 2 years, you do 2 units each year, which counts to your overall grade. The A-level course is another Level 3 course that you can do here at New College. It's done alongside 2 of the A-levels and an A-level pathway. Year 1 doesn't count towards your grade and you spend most of the time doing workshops, learning new techniques and exploring different areas of photography specialisms. In Year 2, you have 2 graded personal investigations, which is worth 60% of your grade, and a coursework exam, which is worth 40%. The Level 2 courses that we do here at Queen's Drive campus are the GCSE Photography course and the BTEC Level 2 Diploma in Art and Design Skills. The BTEC Level 2 Diploma is the Level 2 Vocational Photography course. On this course, you'll spend 10 hours a week with your teacher in contact time in lessons, but you're expected to do again at least 5 hours at home for homework to carry out shoots or improve your written work. This course is equivalent to 4 GCSEs. The work is assessed as coursework and you do 4 units over 1 year. The GCSE course is 4 hours a week and you do it alongside 4 other GCSE qualifications. It's partially assessed by coursework, which is worth 60% of the overall grade, and partially assessed by an exam, which is 40% of the overall grade. The vocational Level 3 course is the BTEC Level 3 Extended Diploma in Art and Design Creative Practice. It's a 2-year course, as I said earlier, and you'll be expected to spend 13 hours a week in contact time with your teacher, but spend about 5 hours at least at home doing shoots and finishing off any work set in lesson. It's a great course to do if you know you want to be a photographer professionally and you have a passion for the topic. Over each year, you do 2 units, which allow you to be assessed on a modular basis. And the last unit at the end of the 2nd year is worth 40% of your overall grade. To do this course, you should ideally have your own DSLR camera. However, if you don't have one, we do have some that you can loan from the department. Each year we expect you to pay £120 studio fee. This is paid by October, and we use this money to pay for your equipment that you use throughout the year. In the first year, this goes towards darkroom materials, such as darkroom paper, film, and money towards the chemical costs that we use for specialist techniques and workshops. It's also used to pay for a digital photography kit, which gets you started in photography when you start the course. In the second year, the money goes towards creating a professional portfolio, which allows you to go to university interviews or job interviews when you finish college and get the right kind of course for you. The A-level photography course is the other level 3 photography qualification that you can do here at New College at the Queen's Drive campus. It's 5 hours a week alongside 2 other of your A-levels on an A-level pathway, and the examining body is OCR. In the first year, you spend your year learning new photographic techniques, understanding how best to do specific artist research, and carrying out practical workshops. In the second year, you participate in 2 graded units, the personal investigation unit and the exam unit, which runs from February to May. To do this course, we ask that you pay a £35 studio fee, which covers consumables used on the course, and that you have your own DSLR camera, as it's very beneficial when needing to do shoots outside of lesson time. However, it's not necessary to own your own DSLR camera, and you can borrow equipment from the college if needed. The 2 level 2 courses are based on the GCSE and the level 2 diploma. The level 2 diploma is a 1-year course where you spend 10 hours a week in contact time with your teacher and 5 hours outside of contact time doing homework. It's equivalent to 4 GCSEs over the year, so we cover quite a lot of material over the year. It's a good course to do if you want to do photography at level 3 and you want to possibly pursue a career in photography in the future. The course is split over 4 units into the year, and the final unit is worth 40% of your overall grade. For this course, ideally we request that students pay a £40 studio fee at the start of each year to cover costs of the digital photography kit. It would help if you have your own digital camera if you're thinking of doing this course, but we do have some that you can loan if you don't. The GCSE photography course is covered in 1 year. During this year, you'll do 2 units. Unit 1, which has 2 projects set, which are marked out of 96 and are worth 60% of your GCSE grade, and Unit 2, which is an externally set task where you choose a question from the paper and it's marked out of 96, which is worth 40% of your overall grade. To do this course, it really helps if you have your own camera, but if you don't, we do have some which you can loan out, or you can use your smartphones. If you get a second, it'd be great if you could have a look at our Facebook page, Photography at New College Swindon. It's a chance for you to see what's happening at New College in Swindon, see the latest news from students' work and where they're at now, and also get some great tips to improve your own photography. Now for the fun part, the workshop. Today I want to show you a little bit about lighting. Now, photography itself comes from the Greek word photos, meaning light, and graph, meaning drawing. Light is an essential part of photography and should never be overlooked. We can use natural lighting or artificial lighting, or a combination of both, to create fantastic portraits and creative outcomes. So let's explore how we can use lighting creatively to change the atmosphere in an image. Now, at the moment, you might use natural lighting such as sunlight to take your photographs, but you can also use lots of artificial lights such as strobe, flash, whatever ambient lighting you have in the room, a torch, candlelight, street lighting, glow sticks or lamps to create your lighting for your images. I'm going to show you how you can experiment with lighting using a torch to paint light creatively onto your subject and draw with light like artists have done for many years. Let's have a look at some artists. So in these examples you can see some older examples of light drawing from Picasso in the top left image, and some more modern examples where people have used lighting and coloured it to create an interesting portrait. The 2 bottom right images show someone using black and white and objects that are diffusing the light to create interesting examples of lighting in a creative way, and to create silhouettes that go against people's faces. In the two coloured images with the green and red and the pink and blue, you see contrasting colours here, lighting the subject and making them look very dramatic indeed. In the top right image, you see a person has used lighting with lace to create an interesting pattern on the person's face. At the bottom left, you see two images that have been created using light drawing to create the shape and pattern of something, which then makes the image look a little bit more interesting and exciting. With these images, they all give you ideas on how you can experiment with lighting in a creative way. So let's have a go at our workshop and see what we can come up with. For this workshop, you're going to need the following bits of equipment. You'll first of all need a torch. This could be a torch on a phone, but probably for easier use, you may want to find a torch with a separate device to what you might be using to take photographs with. You're going to also need some sweet wrappers, ideally for a little bit of extra creative workshop at the end. You're going to need a range of kitchen appliances with holes in them, such as colanders, graters, slotted spoons, whisks, or anything else that you think would create an interesting impression on a subject. You're also going to need a model or subject to photograph. For this workshop, I used a mannequin's head, but you can use a teddy bear or a little brother or sister or sibling in your house. You also need a darkened room to take the photographs. You'll need this because we're using intense light that will require quick photographs to be taken when we diffuse it with very strong metal objects. But I think personally, if you have a blackened out room with all the lights off, you should be fine. A little bit of light isn't too bad. It depends on what kind of camera you have to how it will affect your image. Moving on to the cameras, you need a camera. I use both the DSLR camera and I use my phone, which is an iPhone 11, to take these photographs that are going to come up soon. Now, you might not have that kind of equipment, and that's totally fine. You can also use any other cameras that you have, either smartphones or instant cameras if you want to try and take some of these images. But for the more experienced images which require a longer shutter speed, you may struggle. You also need a tripod or a sturdy surface to rest your camera on. Especially if you're using a camera phone, you need to have something to lean your camera up against. Okay, because what you're going to do is use a longer exposure, and your camera may need more time to make sure that it takes the photograph and gets all the details in. So if you have something built up in a little tower and you can rest your camera phone on it, that would be great, just to make sure it stays as still as possible. Also, and finally but not least, ideally you'd need an assistant to help you. This can be a guardian, a parent, a sibling, or a friend, just to help you experiment with lighting and have a bit of fun. Now, the first thing you need to do is set up your camera with a tripod. Again, if you don't have a camera or a tripod, that's totally fine. If you balance your camera and set up the shot how you want it to look and know where your framing is, that would be a big help. Maybe rest your camera against some books, or experiment with putting it against a hard surface where you can still press the shoot button, but it won't be affected too much by the camera moving. For your images, if you're using a DSLR camera, I use an exposure of 8 seconds with an aperture of 5.6 and an ISO of 100. But depending on what camera you're using, your smartphone or your DSLR may need different settings. So just play around and see what you can get with the camera that you have, and do your best to make the room as dark as possible. Don't forget, before you turn your camera on to take the photographs, you need to turn off the lights. So once you set up your object as you want to light it, and you've got the camera set exactly where you want it, just make sure that the camera is focused purely on the object, so that when you turn the lights off, your autofocus isn't going to be moving around. and changing where your focus point will be on the image. Next, what you want to do is turn off the lights and take your pictures. You use the torch and shine it through a range of different subjects to take the picture that you need. In the first image, I use a colander, and you can see it creates lots of small holes on the subject. In the second image, I used a whisk, and this time I made sure that I lay down the whisk and tried to get my phone out of the image. In the second image, I used my phone to create a slatted spoon effect on the model. In each of these images, I wasn't using the settings I mentioned earlier. I wanted to show you how to take the photographs. I want you to also experiment with how far and how close the object is to the subject and how that changes the brightness of the image. If you're using a smartphone, the likelihood is you're going to need to be quite close to your object to make a really bright light shape appear on your subject to allow you to have a faster shutter speed. But in the following slides, I'll show you some examples of me using both a smartphone and a DSLR to take images in a creative way like this, with the correct settings. This is the first image I took with the DSLR camera, which was taking a photograph using a whisk to diffuse the light and create small thin lines across the face. Because the light was only on the left-hand side of the model, in this case the mannequin's head, you can see there's lots of slants that go down, and because I was holding the whisk up and I was holding the light, I was a little bit shaky with my hands, so the lights aren't as crisp as I would like, but it still creates an interesting effect. When you're trying to use your whisk to create lines up like this one, try experiment with moving the phone torch or the torch that you have further away and closer to the whisk, and see how that differentiates how the lines appear on the face. Also experiment with moving the whisk closer to the model and moving it further away. You don't want the whisk close enough to the subject that you're photographing to make it have a whisk in the actual eye or in the face or in any part of the subject or in the frame, but you want it to be close enough to get these nice crisp lines and to create interesting exposure. This is the image that I took using a colander. One thing I've noticed when I experiment with my photographs is that when taking portraits of any kind, it's really important to make sure that the main thing in focus is the eyes. They say that the eyes are the window to the soul, so it's always important to make sure that if you are using creative lighting techniques like this in a portrait, that the eyes are always lit. This will give you the most interesting effect, and I think you can see when you move the colander further away, the spots on the face get bigger and more spread apart, whereas when they're closer, they're a lot smaller. In the image on the bottom right, you can see that the colander is slightly in the shot, just about here. You can see the reflection of it in the dark. But here, that's how we know that the colander is close, because the spots are really small and they're showing on the face. In this image, I didn't hold the colander for a whole 8 seconds without it moving. I couldn't, my hands were not able to do it. So I did move it a little bit over to the eye, so I got a little bit of light in the eye, but it wasn't there for the whole 8 seconds. These are my examples of doing the same sort of thing, but using phones to take the photographs. In the first image on the left-hand side, I used my Apple 11 phone. This took quite good photographs, and what I liked about this image is that I saw the colander design on the background. It's a lot higher ISO, so the quality is not as good and there's a little bit more noise in the image, but it looks pretty good. In the Galaxy S9 example, I used a friend's phone to take the photograph. This phone had a pro setting that allowed us to lengthen the exposure time, but to take this photograph I had to make sure that I stood very still with the phone and I propped it up against something to make sure that it didn't move. When I did try and hold it in my hand, it would not get a decent image at all. Everything was very blurry and it looked a little bit crazy. But maybe that's something you want to produce in your images, maybe not. But it's always best to make sure that you try and get it in focus and as still as possible when you're taking the photographs themselves. This is me using the slotted spoon this time. So this was a metal spoon with 3 slots in the spoon itself. In this image you can see how the light has bent towards the face as the nose and the eye change shape from the forehead. So it creates an interesting image overall. When you experiment with tools, try and see how you can move the light to create different aspects of image. What could be quite nice is if the light was directly above the person and the slots were coming down the face and one of them was down the nose. So maybe that's something you want to experiment with yourself. There is another way that you can experiment with light, and that's using the sweet wrappers that I mentioned earlier. If you wrap your torch with the sweet wrappers, and then you can see there's different types of lighting. Now, this is me using every sweet wrapper that I could find in the Quality Street tin. So I had the yellow, red, green, orange, pink, purple and blue, but they're not as strong as one might expect. Notice how in the blue wrapper image, the light just looks very cold and it's not particularly bluish. It's just got a slight coolness to the image. Well, that works quite nicely and it makes the image look quite interesting. Whereas the red and purple and orange wrapper are a lot stronger in hue, which means that the image has a lot more of a deeper colour to it than any of the others. The yellow wrapper has given a nice warmth to the image, so maybe if you've got someone that's quite pale, you may want to use like a yellow wrapper to increase some lighting in the future. But another thing makes me think that you could also use this lighting technique to add atmosphere to an image in another way. In art, for years and years and years, people have been using colour as a way of representing emotions and meaning. And in this image from Pinterest, you can see what people represent different colours in terms of different moods or different positions of personality. Some people find blue natural, stable, powerful, trusting and calm. But when I think back to images by Picasso, when he had his blue period, all these images were painted in blue, which represented a depressive state. So there's lots of ways that you can take colour theory and turn it into something that you find meaning with. And maybe you could use colour in this way to make an interesting statement about your own work in the future. Another way you can use the torch to draw with light is actually by turning the torch towards the camera. Previously, you'd have to make sure that you're painting with light, so you're covering the subject with the light. Here, we're less bothered about the subject and more about what kind of patterns we can create with the light source. So by turning my phone the other way and putting the torch towards the camera, I was able to draw and write letters. So in the first one, I used the word love. I wrote love because I knew I was using a red gel over the image. By using the red gel, or sweet wrapper in this case, I thought the word love was most appropriate because when we think of red, we think of love. With the other image, I decided to try zigzags. And you can see with the zigzags that they look a little bit blue and cooler. I was going to write ice, but frankly, I couldn't get it in. Here's an example of using sweet wrappers with the phone torch, using a smartphone to take the photograph. Again, this was taken on the Galaxy S9 Android phone, and you can just about see me in the backdrop writing the word hello. Now, I've become quite skilled at writing letters backwards and in the dark, so don't feel bad if you can't quite get it as detailed as this, but maybe you'll do even better. I think it just takes practice, lots and lots of practice. And that's the end of our workshop. So I want you to experiment yourself with lighting in a creative way. Have a go, have a play, and see what you come up with. If you get anything really good, please feel free to send it to her. If you want some extra ideas about how you can play with light and create interesting photographs, please check out these videos, which I'll put on the link beneath on the VLE page. If you have any other questions about the courses, please feel free to contact one of the course leaders, depending on which course you're interested in. We have Claire Ashley for Vocational Level 3 and Level 2 Photography course, Louise Spence for the A-Level Photography course, and Sam Isles for the GCSE Photography course. Thanks very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and you got some interesting new techniques in your mind for improving your photography in the future. And we hope to look forward to meeting you in 2021 or 2022.